Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So my filming location is a little bit different today. I am down in Rehoboth Beach. I'm on vacation with my family, so I am filming here in a beach house. So that is why it looks different, but I really wanted to make sure that I got this video filmed because while I have been here, I've been reading Rachel Harrison's latest novel, So Thirsty. If you've never heard of Rehoboth Beach before, just total side note, there's an amazing independent bookstore here called Browse About Books. I bought a ton of books here this trip, which I will definitely be reading soon. They are all books from my most anticipated list of 2024, so those will all be coming very, very soon. But they have an amazing bookstore, and it is October, so their horror section is enormous. They actually have 2 horror sections right now. But anyway, back to Rachel Harrison's latest novel. I am going to be talking about this book with spoilers towards the second half of this video, and I will note when those spoilers are coming up. So just so you know, the second half of this video will have spoilers to the ending of this. But this is So Thirsty. This just came out. This is, I think, the 4th book I've read from Rachel Harrison. She's an instant buy author for me. I absolutely adore her writing style. A lot of times, and I've said this many, many times, I don't really think Rachel Harrison is for everybody. She's definitely a very millennial style author. And I think that's one of the things that I love about her is I can just relate to her characters and her tone and her conversationalism in her writing so well. So she's somebody that I always want to pick up her books, and then I just find myself usually hating the main characters, but being so invested in the story that I don't care, and I just want to keep reading what she has written down. So this is her vampire novel. I'm going to read the inside flap, and then we're going to chat about this. So it says, Sloane Parker is dreading her birthday. She doesn't need a reminder she's getting older, or that she's feeling indifferent about her own life. Her husband surprises her with a birthday weekend getaway. Not with him, but with Sloane's longtime best friend, troublemaker extraordinaire, Naomi. Sloane anticipates a weekend of wine tastings and cozy robes and strategic avoidance of issues she'd rather not confront, such as her husband's repeated infidelity. But when they arrive at their rental cottage, it becomes clear Naomi has something else in mind. She wants Sloane to stop letting things happen to her, for Sloane to really live. So Naomi orchestrates a wild night out with a group of mysterious strangers, only for it to take a horrifying turn that changes Sloane's and Naomi's lives literally forever. Their friends are forced to come to terms with some pretty internal consequences in this bloody, seductive novel about how it's never too late to find satisfaction, even though it might taste different than expected. Okay, so I devoured probably the first third of this book. First third of this book to me was very, very quintessential, standard Rachel Harrison writing. It reminded me so much of Cackle. It reminded me so much of Black Sheep. Except for the fact that I found myself kind of liking the main character more than any of the other characters that I've read from her. She was still in this kind of woe is me, never quite seeing the flaws that she creates for herself, but I felt like that for the first time with any Rachel Harrison character was the point, and this novel was about that character kind of overcoming that part of her. And then her foil is her best friend Naomi, who is drastically different from Sloane. Pretty much a joy to read about. I really, really loved all of the scenes with Naomi. I loved the history of their relationship. I loved their continued friendship. I loved how they balanced each other out, both as characters, but also throughout the different things that are happening within the story. Where this novel lost me was the latter half of this book, because the more I was reading this book, the more I kept kind of rolling my eyes and being like, they're setting up for a series, which is something I don't expect from Rachel Harrison. There are so many moments in this book and so many plot points and devices in this book that I really thought were going to be fully expanded upon, but as I was reading the novel, it just got closer and closer and closer to the end, and a lot of those moments I was like, why are these scenes happening? And there were just so many plots that were started and never finished. We sort of get closure with Sloane's relationship with her cheating husband, Joel. We sort of get a look into Naomi's own relationship with her like rock star boyfriend and kind of the going-ons behind the scene with that. That's kind of touched upon, but we never dive into really either of those storylines, and they just kind of happen, get tied up really neatly with a bow and brushed aside. We then have a storyline with a character named Miss Alice that I think kind of comes out of nowhere and was very, very interesting. It kind of brought me back to like really paying attention to the book and being like, this is interesting, this is cool, this is different. And then it just is kind of this like barely an inconvenience moment, as Screen Rant would say, and then just kind of pushed aside. And then of course we have Henry's whole backstory as just this kind of, once again, very much touched upon storyline that just dissipates. And we never actually get the answer. So I really do wonder if Rachel Harrison is planning for this to be a series, because there was the beginnings of a lot of world building. This is a vampire novel in which vampires don't function the way that we traditionally see them function. They are more of a Twilight style vampire. And I think that's kind of what she was riffing on, because there is a lot of romance and like borderline smut in this novel, which I was not expecting for a Rachel Harrison novel. When I was reading this, I really did think it was going to go more in the direction of Cackle. And again, it did kind of devolve into this vampire romance that is just so cliche and so overdone, with some really horrific elements throughout. Some really kind of grotesque scenes. Rachel Harrison is always pretty good at like touching upon really, really dark, horrible topics, but her novels usually have a lot of humor in them. This one I felt like had the least amount of humor and really went in the kind of cozy romance direction, and then just like threw a lot of pretty horrific scenes in as well. In classic Rachel Harrison fashion, this is a book that is attempting to be extremely feminist. And I say attempting to be because that is absolutely what Cackle did. There are a lot of moments in Cackle that just get to the point of like being like a very pro-feminist story, and then the plot deviates and you're kind of like, wait, what message are you trying to send? I don't think I quite understand. Did I miss something? So this is a little bit more on the nose, I would say, in Rachel Harrison's view of feminism. Definitely the book I've read from her that I think I agree with her opinions the most, but still has these like kind of problematic elements. And again, I'm not sure if this is a romance story or a best friend story, and like looking at your soulmate as somebody who is not a romantic partner but has been like your best friend for your whole life, and what that means and the lengths that you would go for either one. I'm not 100% sure, because the waters got muddied as I was trying to understand what was happening. And I'm going to talk more in depth about the ending, because I found the ending very confusing. I think the epilogue really shed light on the message that Rachel Harrison was trying to send with this novel. But had that epilogue not been there, I don't think I would have fully understood the book and the message she was trying to send. And I don't necessarily love that she had to kind of double down and explain to the reader what she was trying to say, because she couldn't show it without telling us what she wanted. So that was definitely something that for me, I was a little like, I don't quite know about that. So this was a 4-star read for me, and it was a 4-star read even though I debated rating it a 3-star read. But the reason it was a 4-star is I still wanted to keep reading it. Even when I started to lose interest in the plot, even when I started to not really understand where the novel was going or what message it was trying to send, and I was kind of just really torn about what I thought of Sloane by the end of it. Especially because I did think that I liked her quite a lot at the beginning. And I did love Naomi throughout, which is a step up. I usually don't love the main characters in Rachel Harrison stories. I usually enjoy the side characters, not the main characters. I did find these two characters to probably be the least selfish of the leads that she has written previously. I would still say that they're selfish characters themselves, but I definitely think they're more realistic and manageable and likable. In a way, they both also have severe flaws, but they complement each other really, really well. And again, I don't know how I feel about the sexy vampire cliche. I just feel like it's something that's been done so many times. And with Rachel Harrison, who I always think has a really interesting take on werewolves and witches and cults, the way she does her own stories, I think is always very different and unique. So seeing her just kind of dive into the kind of cliche Twilight vampire, I didn't love. I really wanted more from it. And this book ended up feeling more like a slice of life story than it did an actual tale. It felt like the beginning of a series. It felt like it was setting up for a lot of things, started a lot of world building, built up a lot of characters. I mean, we have three characters in this novel who seem like they're going to have a large role and then just completely disappear. We have Miri, Costal, and Joel. They all have pretty important roles at some point, and then we just never see them again, really. We could also extend that to Lee as well. I felt like Lee was another character who kept being referred to as Lee or Levi, which is very confusing because you usually think of those as different names. So I guess we have 4 characters that made an appearance, felt like they were going to be very pivotal, and then we just never saw them again. And I was kind of like, why did we do that? What's going on here? Is this going to be more? And the only answer, the only solution I can come up with is that this has to be a start of a vampire series, because otherwise it doesn't click or work as a standalone novel. There's too many ideas started and then just absolutely brushed past and not followed through. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the new HBO remake of Salem's Lot that just came out, but it was like such an abridged, truncated version of Stephen King's story that the whole time I'm watching and I'm like, there's just so much missing. There's so much missing. What's happening? It's like so undeveloped, and that's how I felt about this novel. So I'm going to go into the spoilers now, because I really want to talk about some of these started plot points, and kind of just dive into why they didn't work for me, because they didn't really carry through in a way that I need them to, and of course the ending of this book. Okay, so spoilers are starting now. I really thought this novel was going to be all about Naomi and Sloane becoming vampires and then going after Joel and then maybe Lee/Levi. I really thought Joel was a terrible character. I thought he was a terrible person. I thought he was a good character for the story. And I really wanted more from him, and I really felt like Sloane needed to remove him from her life in a way that was a little bit more tangible than just the phone call and the chucking of the wedding rings. I thought that was really, really strange, and I thought it was a huge buildup at the beginning, honestly for the first half of the book, to then just completely disappear and not matter anywhere else. I thought that was really, really strange. And then we get to Henry kind of making such a big deal about his past, and then we get like a teeny little exposition paragraph where he explains what I thought was a really interesting story for, the truncated version that it was, and then we just never hear about it again. And it's just like, okay, and maybe there's a nod to it in the epilogue or something, but I was like, no, I need more. And then we get that again with the Miss Alice storyline, which I want to know the vampires' relationships with Miss Alice. I want to know how they know her. I want to know how she knows them. I want to know that whole story in the run-in. I want to know the story about the initial feeder who was in the house that they had taken over, and how Alice and the feeder all relate, and how this whole vampire lore works. Because there's a whole moment where Ilya really explains to Sloane and Naomi how different their vampirism is than pop culture vampirism. And it's this kind of tongue-in-cheek moment where he's like, oh, unfortunately we don't turn into bats, right? Which I thought was really funny and clever, but I wanted more of that in the backstory of who all these people are, and because there's so many characters. I feel like Costal and Miri did not need to be there, and Tatiana and Elisa, I don't know what it was, kind of blended into one character. I didn't think that we needed that many characters. I think if we had maybe Elisa, maybe Ilya, and maybe some hybrid of all the other vampires poured into one, or even Tatiana. I think Tatiana might have been more interesting than Elisa. Along with Henry, that would have been fine. But there were too many, and it was very strange. I felt like the entire scene where Sloane and Naomi leave and then try and drive down to Wilmington or wherever it was, North Carolina, was completely unnecessary, and it was so long, and they just made the same mistakes over and over and over again. I didn't need to keep reading about them not being able to control their thirst. And to me, it was just very redundant, and then but the stakes were getting higher and higher and higher and higher, and it then went nowhere. The gas station scene was brutal. It was really, really brutal. And the way Naomi acted was like crazy scary. And the whole like implications of what the vampires were doing and why, again, very scary, very dark, very much like there's definitely more to these people than meets the eye. Like, I don't believe that they're necessarily good characters, especially with how they reacted with the store clerk. And then nothing. Like, I just needed more. I needed to know exactly what was going on, and these tidbits of interesting facts that just, again, went absolutely nowhere drove me insane. And then Naomi just not having any guilt over any of it felt kind of uncharacteristic to who she was. I felt like Sloane's character development into kind of her revelation towards the end was very well thought out, but Naomi's was just kind of an afterthought once the initial attacking of the attendant at the hotel happened, and then it just kind of spiraled downward from there. And then I don't know, I didn't buy the Henry Sloane romance. I felt like it just kind of felt forced. I felt like it was definitely where the story needed to end up, but I just don't think it was built upon, and it kind of snowballed really, really quickly without the development that it needed. And again, it needed more, and it muddied the kind of relationship that Naomi and Sloane had to like say, is this story about like sisterhood and like girl power and like your soulmate could be your best friend, or is it about somebody getting over her husband and like sleeping with a vampire? I don't know. And then the ending I thought was really interesting. Again, we have Naomi messing up, literally no repercussions for any of her actions. There's never a single consequence for her horrible actions. It's all happy and go lucky. I really thought she was gonna die. I really did. I thought that was a suitable ending for her character. But it ends up being this like Deus Ex Machina at the end. Like the vampires just appear in the mall. Like it was very, very poetic. The dream mall that the two of them shared. And then Sloane needing to carry on her own and kind of lose that dependency that she had on either Joel or her vacuum or Naomi. But she just remains dependent again on Henry and still with Naomi there. I did like the epilogue scene of them all in Prague and like the Sloane kind of nodding to the two girls that were like trying to be like them or whatnot. I thought that was like very cute, and it was like rah rah girl power, like your soulmate, your best friend, whatever. Like I got the ending at the end, but I just don't think it was as powerful as it could have been had Naomi not made it through the dream mall. And I honestly thought Henry was not going to be there. I thought Sloane was going to be in the mall, Naomi was going to die, and she was going to realize for once she was alone in the world. But the one thing the book had done is show that she has far more control over her life and her vampirism than Naomi did. And she was going to be able to start again as herself without any kind of dependency and move forward. And I was like, that's a bleak ending for this book, but that's a much better ending than the one that they wrote. And I was really upset that they had that last paragraph in that epilogue, because I was like, no, the vampires leave them, and why they left them alone at the blood bank to begin with when they know that Naomi is like a loose cannon, bad. But I really, really wanted that bleak ending, and I didn't get it, and that kind of sucked, and it just, I don't know. I keep looking back on this book, and like maybe it should be more of a 3 stars, but I did enjoy reading it, and it goes back to Rachel Harrison's style of writing. She's written a lot of stories I don't like, and a lot of characters I don't like, and a lot of endings I don't like, but her writing is so strong and interesting and compelling, and I just feel like somebody is telling me that story and using like just a tone I am very familiar with, and I love that about her writing. But I did feel like this needed to be a series, and I'm really scratching my head at the fact that there was such a good amount of world building started upon, and then just brushed under the rug like it didn't matter. Like, I don't know why it was there. We didn't need so much, and it would have focused way more on like Alice than any of like the gas station scene or the bathroom scene by like the pullover or whatever it was on the highway. Like, there were just so many scenes that didn't need to happen, and other scenes towards the end that should have been expanded upon and carrying the story forward, and I wish that was there. Also, there was just like a ridiculous amount of smut in this book, and it's not like I like care that much, but it just made it fall so much into the vampire like True Blood style cliche, and I'm like, no, like write a vampire story that's not cliche. Do something different, especially if you're gonna do like a girl power vampire story. But they had to put the smut in there, so I don't know. I don't know. If you're a Rachel Harrison fan, read it. If you're like a vampire romance fan, read this book. But otherwise, I can't see it working for other people. Like, Rachel Harrison, I think, has much better books. I think Black Sheep is much better. I think So Sharp Sheep, Cackle, I think they're all better than this. I think this one just, it felt like Twilight fan fiction. It felt like True Blood fan fiction with like sisterhood at the core of it. And I wanted more from her. So that is what I have. Anyways, that is all that I have for you guys today. As always, I try to post every Monday and Thursday, sometimes on Saturdays. And if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. And I will catch you all in the next one. Bye.